Now, you also looked at just the physical space of the CBD in doing your research. And following on what you've just told me, I feel I have to ask, is there space, Andrew? Because we have so many people coming into the CBD to work, and certainly many people now want to live in the CBD. Are we not going to run out of space? It's only this big.
It's an interesting question, and I always say space is actually just about creativity and how we use it. If you look at the vacancy figures for commercial office buildings, which are contained in the report as well, you're looking at a high level of, respectively, a high level of C-grade office space. And of course, C-grade is the spaces that have less amenities, perhaps in our older buildings and whatnot. But we're looking at around the low 20s as a pretty standard norm for the vacancy rate at that level. Whenever you've got such a high level of vacant space, it makes sense to think about what that space could rather be used for. And this is where we're really starting to look at, okay, maybe we can start exploring mixed-use buildings, buildings that some of it where they're office spaces, other parts of buildings where they're residential, all using the same space, which again optimizes the existing space that we've got, provides greater profits for the building owners, provides better housing for the people who live there, and provides, again, a higher level of economic growth for the city at large. Because of course the more people living in Cape Town CBD, the more the restaurants, the more the shops, the more the retailers benefit from having more customers nearby. And in terms of the city itself handling the capacity, in terms of residential growth, that's one of the best areas to target. Particularly because if you look at the infrastructure, so for instance sewerage outflows, electricity use and whatnot, those peak very much in the working day. So of course residential use brings in the night use of that, which very much we've got capacity to be using. So in essence, to grow our economy, expanding the residential sector, particularly in a more affordable fashion, makes a world of sense. And it is really just about looking at space and getting creative with how we actually use that space.
Now, you've spent what I imagine to be months of your time on this research as the senior researcher on the project. Is there a particular piece of research or information that surprised you in compiling all this data?
I think it's actually looking at the user survey itself, and it's a very clinical name for actually a really great study that surveys people day in and night to find out exactly what they think of the city and how they feel about being in it. And surprisingly, well, perhaps not surprisingly, people find Cape Town CBD to be a very inclusive space. Walking around in the streets, if we ask people, how inclusive do you feel? It's always above 70% of people feel that Cape Town CBD is an inclusive place. Some more really interesting aspects that come out of that data look at how many people use informal traders. And in this report in 2014, we found that 73% of people surveyed say that they use informal traders as a place to buy various goods, services, and supplies. That's a huge number of people that make use of informal trade in the CBD. And if you look at it, what that says is that people are not either shopping at informal trade or at formal traders or retailers, they're doing it at both. And from an economic growth point of view, that really opens up quite an exciting opportunity to expand partnerships between formal and informal retailers. Looking at where people come from, people come into the CBD from all over the city. It really is quite a buzzing mix of all of Cape Town put into one space. And what people are saying in some of the data that's included in this report really highlight that quite well.